All right, so we're recording now. So this is our, oh boy, I've lost track of which session this is, but we're a bunch of black belts talking about MoreSteam Session 11, which is the improve phase. I wanted, before we get started, Dominic and I were sort of talking about some of his experience and some recent training that he had. Dominic, do you just want to, sort of hit the highlights for Cassie, tell her sort of what you did and what you kind of got out of it?
Yeah, sure. So as I was explaining to Eric, myself and a coworker recently had the opportunity to go to Scottsdale for training under the Institute of Operational Excellence. So they put on this training for a design for operational excellence, specifically looking at these deep issues of value stream mapping and how you leverage value stream mapping and other tool sets for business growth. So I was explaining to Eric, it's pretty interesting just getting into some non-conventional problems. Typically when we read about value stream mapping, we're giving these perfect scenarios of, how work balance is out and how we're able to institute continuous flow throughout the entire value stream, and it's non-mixed model. And the other big thing, Eric, was the shared resources component of value stream mapping and how you manage those. Right. So very enlightening in being able to kind of take a look and break apart that value stream and see, are you going to have issues in the real world, where you're setting your production schedules, where you have visual indicators, or Kanban systems, also some common pitfalls of, trying to, implement these other tool sets within your value stream. And then you ultimately come to realize that they're not working as effectively as you think. So we kind of broke into some reasons why. A lot of it having to do with the understanding of your model mix and your interval. Are you able to cycle through all of your product numbers, within a certain amount of days, and then be able to hit your customer demand, which is, the customer demand rate, which is packed. All of those factors. So I'm not articulating all of it, but it's very, very detailed. And if you ever have the opportunity to attend, or they have webinars as well, I would certainly encourage that to get it.
Good. Well, maybe you could sort of share some either information or websites or things, and we can go ahead and post it up on the portal, right?
Yeah.
So you can sort of have access to that. So,
yeah, absolutely. I'd be happy to.
All right. All right. So I'm going to, as also sort of as a sharing, I just got something that I thought I wanted to share with you guys. And where is this? I'll share my desktop. But the thing I wanted to show you. Yeah, the thing I wanted to show you guys was So, one of the I don't know, sort of, there's certain things you ought to have, right? You ought to have a copy of Lean Thinking. Maybe you ought to have a copy of the Toyota Way. This Lean lexicon is something I also think, maybe would be good to have. I don't know, hey, Cassie, you got, could you put your phone on mute, or is that, we've got a Cassie driving, iPhone driving, and a Cassie, and another phone number, a 916 phone number.
Yeah, I'll mute it.
Okay, there we go. We'll get a little less noise there. But this Lean lexicon, I think it's something that you might want to think about. If you go to the Lean Enterprise Institute. So it's actually lean.org. And you go there. This is available in PDF form for $15, which sort of seems, pretty reasonable. But, as we talk about all these different lean tools and things you might want to apply, I really like this. I'm just going to kind of scroll down and sort of show you what, so they're kind of, set up like this with the term, the definition, an example, cross-reference to other tools, and some sort of illustration. So this is the one for an andon. But, it's all sort of alphabetical. It talks about like what an A3 report is, something called A/B control, which I had sort of never heard of, ABC production analysis, andon, automated line stop, and what it is. But I think it's just a really useful thing to have when people ask you what these things are, and every once in a while I just sort of flip through it and try to refresh myself on some of these tools, because we tend to forget about that some of these things exist. Okay, so I thought I'd start out by sharing that with you. Otherwise, let me go ahead and open up my slide set here. So let's see, we got a slideshow from start. There we go. All right, so like I said, we're going to talk about session 11, improve. So here we are. We're getting down to the bottom of this area. I'm going to turn on my little marker here. So let's see, go ahead and draw. Yeah, so I can draw down here. So we're down here. We're on the 26th. Talking about improve. Next time on the 9th, we're going to go ahead and talk about control, and that actually wraps us up. So we've gone all the way through the Demotic process, define, measure, analyze, improve, control, and we're starting to wrap this up. So we've got some things that are due. So the 27th of November, your mini project's due, and then also because you've finished all the online training sessions back by the 6th, you're good to go ahead then and complete the practice test. So anytime between the 6th, when you've completed all these online sessions, and the 27th, I'd like you to take a shot at completing that practice test. And I'll talk about that a little bit. I got some slides coming up I can show you. And then the other target that we have in mind, or that we can sort of keep an eye on, is this December target. So that's a Sunday, the 11th of December, 11 p.m. You each have finished the online exams. That's a 5-hour exam, and I'm also going to go ahead and talk about that. All right. So from you guys, any questions about the due dates on these or the timing? Is that timing work out okay? Is there going to be some sort of problem or pushback from you guys? Because we've got such a small class, I'm ready to be flexible, but it's also nice to have a target to work to. Okay. So you can raise your hand if there's any questions or concerns about that. Otherwise, I am going to go ahead and move on. Oh, let's see, go back to the mouse. There we go. All right, yeah, so this scorecard, we've sort of stopped populating that. What I want to do maybe is have you guys talk a little bit about your mini projects at this point, where they're at currently, and what kind of, maybe insights or challenges that you have at this point. So, we've talked, I know we've talked a lot, to Cassie about some of the stuff she's been doing with her Kaizen event. Maybe Dominic, you maybe talk to us a little bit about your mini project and where you sort of see yourself, and maybe can we help you with some challenges?
Yeah, sure. So if you remember, I had to completely change mine because of our business needs and conditions. So I used a supporting role that I was recently moved into, which really took on the recovery of an Airbus program here as my mini project. So got that all documented. The one thing that I am, just to be transparent, I'm going to not have is I was hoping to get to like an MSA for attribute because of inspection.
Yeah.
But certainly missed that opportunity due to the urgency
Yeah.
of what we were doing. But we closed out and showed some pretty good success. So I will incorporate some non-conventional tools in my mini project, hoping to show that as well.
Yeah, and just so you and everybody knows, I am very flexible as far as like which tools you actually go ahead and apply.
Yeah.
If it's a lean tool somewhere, it can be a lean tool in your mini project.
Okay.
So if you're finding this in that operational excellence class you took, and there's some things you want to sort of incorporate or apply, please go ahead and do that.
Yeah.
And I just want to sort of back up when you talk about your MSA on that attribute problem. Man, if you ever do something like that, I would love to get my hands on something like that, because I think when we talk about measurement system analysis, there's a lot of good examples with gauge R&R and the more I'm drawing a blank on what the word is, but it's the continuous measure, continuous measure stuff as opposed to the attribute measure stuff. So I'd like to get my hands on some good examples to share with students. But
it's going to be a little bit political, so on my end, just because of the source inspection activities that we have here and getting in here.
Well, it might be like some future thing you do, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Aware of it, and if it's appropriate, I'd love to sort of see something like that.
Yeah.
All right. So walk through your project sort of real fast. What is the process? What is the problem? What were your key measures? Right. So we're going to walk through the Demotic process. So first, like to define what's the process and what's the problem?
Yeah, sure. So don't have the actual thing pulled up, catching me a little bit off guard, but I do have kind of the current state of affairs was specifically for Sri Lankan Airlines A350.
Okay.
We suffered just lots of goodwill from the customer at the end of the day. It was poorly managed, slow decision making. Our overall demonstrated quality, we're measuring by DPU here. 20.8 is what our current state of affairs was at. So that's significant, pretty high, considering.
So Dominic, was that the problem? Is DPUs too high?
DPUs and overall throughput. So quality and rate is classically our issue here.
And I'm assuming this is some sort of seat shell, right?
Yes, excuse me. Yeah, so it's for our product specifically here is a seat shell that we're manufacturing for business class seats in commercial aircraft. So we deliver these to the OEM. In this case, it would be Airbus, who then delivers to the airline, which would be Sri Lankan Airlines.
Okay, and so the DPU, is that your sort of key measure?
Exactly, DPU and rate. So we had an average pace of 0.93 units per day, which is not acceptable.
Okay.
We're not even getting units a day before, the expectation is at least 2 units a day.
Right.
Considering that we have, in this particular case, 28 units that make up a ship set, which is 1 aircraft's worth of product. Right. All of these changes and activities have to happen in a very compressed timeline.
Okay. So did you have so what kind of tools did you use in the measure phase? So I imagine at the define phase there's some sort of process map that you did, and then
we were able to for the define phase, obviously the project charter was there, process mapping, kind of the high level SciPoc. We also leveraged we weren't able to get into hard cycle time estimations for constructing our value stream map.
Right.
So we came and brought in the cross-functional team and really of the operators, right, and the subject matter experts who are actually building the components to come up with a rough cut of cycle times per for the work content.
Right.
Then able to build up our value stream map for the final assembly line.
Okay.
Doing that in a very visual way, first with post-it notes on the back of a board, and then we folded that into an electronic format so we can really see the flow of materials and cycle times for each, broke that into kind of a work balance so we can look at our opportunities in order to level load as much as possible. Again,
so I'm just sort of thinking, like, from a mini project sort of standpoint,
yeah.
The site, project charter and SIPOC, you're done with define. Some sort of work balance chart would probably work well on the measure because, rate is sort of one of the things you're concerned about.
Yeah.
I guess some operational definition. What other tool are you gonna, if you had to pick two, like what are your other measure tool, or what are your two measure tools?
Yeah, so then we have the quality component of it, right? So we're looking at the rate side, but also what are we looking for to establish our quality levels? So from that, in measurement, we have a various in-process checklists that fold into our defect Paretos, to be able to then analyze those Paretos and then institute any improvement plans off of those.
So just like a defect Pareto could be like your second tool, right?
Yeah.
We have that. Pareto could also be used in the analyze phase too.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. So we have various levels. First, we took a rough cut a Pareto of defects and realized that it really didn't give us the granularity that we needed in order to solve the quality, which in turn impacts rate. So yeah, we do have lower level Paretos that kind of want to tell that story as well of how we even rapidly improved our monitoring system in order to get the level of granularity for actionable items, which would improve our quality and rate.
Okay, sounds good. Hey, I just noticed that Cassie, turned on her video, and I really sort of appreciate that. So I see a face. Dominic, is your video not working today? Or?
Yeah, I actually don't know what I did with the menu bar here. Now it went away, but let me try.
Oh yeah. It's always nice to see a face there. Thanks.
I see this little icon, but I don't see I don't see you, but it's okay.
Well, let's see, because I can. We don't need to see this thing. Let me just do a stop.
Oh, I got it. It was my fault. I hit some minimize
button thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. So, all right. So I don't know as I was really sort of interested in going to the level of detail, but this is certainly sort of interesting because ultimately I'm trying to get to, okay, well, what are the key insights or challenges, and how can we maybe sort of help you? So I kind of see where you are with the measure stuff, and then analysis and improvements. Like where you at? Are you all the way through? Are you stuck? Or
yeah, I mean, in this case, I had to really take it, and because of the hours, run with it and try to do the job and also satisfy the mini project as much as possible. So it's kind of there's no going back.
Sure.
At this point in time, I have a lot of data. We'll put some things that are to really summarize that. A lot of the stuff that we did use, because that was the intention as I was going through the process. But at this point in time, the ship set's gone and out, and ultimately I think we exceeded the expectations of the customer, what they thought we can do. So
were you able, so what kind of changes or improvements did you do because of the measurement and the analysis and can we get credit for any of this stuff?
Absolutely. Well, absolutely. I mean, all of it's documented, and definitely one of the most important things was the focus on quality and the defect analysis. Getting into a little bit, the culture here, which kind of folds into a bit of the project, on really, we think delivery is the key, right? And pushing, with force. It's not, you have to focus on the quality to improve your rate. And that was fundamental for us. When we got into defect analysis and incorporating the team, one of the things for the project in a non-traditional sense is a QRQC, the mindset of QRQC, developed by Nissan, quick response to quality control.
Right.
Incorporate that as a tool in the line, engaging the operators, and what is a flip chart, when you, you go through problem solving. There, we were leveraging that to make sure that we took any of those things that were impacting our rate, running containment and getting off the line.
Right.
And that would feed a root cause and corrective action system later. But, for us, it was really focusing on the quality of our product, not accepting poor inputs to our process. Balancing the work would probably be number 2 in the work content, really detailed about what are the dependencies of the build. We have an industrialization group that sometimes, they engineer the square peg in a round hole kind of situation, and you have this product that you have to install here, but you have no room to install it.
Right.
Once we balanced and redistributed that work content by dependency, that helped us with the quality aspect, and that helped us really increase the velocity.
So I'm gonna. Sounds like, well, like you said, the stuff shipped, and you were successful in sort of making that happen. So as far as your mini project goes, do you have like the 10 tools identified that you're going to be able to sort of share and sort of complete that, or?
Yeah, so that's where I've already started framing it out. I don't have it here on this laptop. And plugging, plugging those in for the 10 tools. Again, it's kind of caught me off guard and certainly not favorable from my original project, which I was locked and loaded. It was, next day, here we are.
Yeah, no, that's okay. Like I said, if you need some help or sort of figure out, it sounds like you have the too much stuff to work with problem, as opposed to not knowing or not having enough. So it sounds like you're going to be fine as far as wrapping up your mini project, right?
Yeah, I hope so. The one thing that was kind of bummed about was really getting that MSA. Like I said, that would have been really interesting. I'd love to have seen that. But then again, it's like, what could we really have done with it and improving in such a compressed time? Maybe nothing now, but future, right? What recommendations, as far as the mini project goes, would we like to follow up for additional projects?
Well, I think, the thing that would be exciting for me, beyond just sort of seeing the MSA in the first place, is once you have that MSA and you've got sort of the attributes are sort of dialed into that, then, doing things like, a CPK based on attributes or process capability, and that would be huge for your company, right?
Yeah.
Measure that stuff, right? It would be huge.
Yeah.
Anyway.
It'd be interesting for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Hey, Cassie, let's go ahead and turn over to you a little bit. Like I say, we're interested in how you're doing on your mini project, what sort of concerns or issues that we might be able to help out or address. But why don't you go ahead and walk us through? So start out with the define, process, problem. What were the key measures and what you're doing for analysis?
Sure. I was panicking for a moment because my mouse wasn't working, and the Bluetooth, my mouse and batteries was working. So I'm like, how do I tell that my mouse isn't working? Anyway, so
we have to develop a symbol for that, I guess. So
I know. So I've been working on two projects. And the original project I had picked for my little mini project was the issue of patient mortality that all hospitals track, is that we really didn't have an automated data collection system.
Right.
So that was one that I wrote up a charter on, and then the other one that I'm working on is the operating room turnover time between the patients. And so I was hoping to do one for my mini project in mortality, and then one for the OR turnaround time for one of the black belt projects.
Okay. All right.
So
which one? Well, why don't you sort of pick one to talk to us about? Which one do you need more sort of help or feedback with, as far as like fit? And I guess specifically in fitting into a mini project, would probably be the question we're interested in at this point.
Yeah. Because you're putting so much time and energy into both. It's like, well, I would like to turn both of them in, but the mini project. So this is my question is for the mortality. It's like the lean project. It's more setting up a program or setting up a system.
Right.
So versus improving OR times from 40 minutes to 30 minutes.
Right.
So. But the charter was, I did a charter for the define, and then we did, when the group met, we also did like a affinity diagram.
Right.
Because you can't just say, well, why is mortality high, or what areas of mortalities do we have to work in? So we kind of did the affinity diagram of brainstorming and getting ideas and stuff. And so we kind of broke it down into 3 areas. One is documentation of the physician, because if they don't document the severity of the illness, we don't get credit for it. Because, so that feeds into increasing the severity of the patient to expect a mortality. So documentation was one. Palliative care, we have a lot of patients that need to go into palliative care, but we don't. Placement is an issue because the surrounding nursing homes are either busy or don't have rooms for them, and we only have 2 palliative care rooms. And so I asked, well, how many patients are waiting for these rooms? And they say, 5 a day. So those count, if they die as an inpatient, it counts as mortality against the hospital, not as hospice or comfort care or anyways. So palliative care was one, and then quality of care concerns one.
Right. Okay.
So we kind of put them into 3 buckets. So what we were in the testing, but we also mapped out the process where we mapped out a process where we have a nursing staff that would review every single mortality and we call it a focus study. So they're entering it into a software program where it will alert, if they check certain boxes, it will alert us to quality care concerns, palliative care concerns, and documentation concerns.
So Cassie, I'm gonna try to sort of model maybe what I would think maybe a black belt story might be, right? So we had a problem with mortality in the hospital, so we developed a project charter. And then to get an idea as to what the contributions were to the problem, we did an affinity diagram and broke it down. Then, there needs to be some sort of measure type thing where I guess, from listening to your discussion, there were some issues with, how these things are being measured or scored, right? For each one of these areas, you're not getting.
They've never been measured or scored before.
Right. So I would say that you need to do some operational definitions on how you're actually measuring these things, because I know that, down the road, and this is probably, jumping over to analyze a little bit, but a system to better collect the measurements is really what you think the way this is going, right? Is sort of where it's going. And we need to sort of set up the progression through this Demotic process so that you wind up, there at the end, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So some charts of some existing data, operational definitions of data, then some actual maybe sort of plots of what that data looks like historically over time, right? What the sort of the different forms of mortality have been sort of over time would be good. And then from an analysis standpoint, I guess, maybe there would be some sort of do a control chart to see whether, I guess is mortality and control. It's a funny thing to say out of your mouth, I guess, for somebody who's not in the healthcare field. But I don't know what a control chart on dying would look like, but it sounds like that would be something you would have to do to sort of just sort of find out, are you in control or out of control?
Yeah. So in the healthcare world, it's observed to expected ratio.
Right.
So
So you would plot the observed to expected ratio over time and sort of see if it's, within the upper and lower, 3 standard deviations, type thing, right?
yes.
So that would be like one of the, maybe sort of one of the analyze approaches. And then maybe just, another analyze tool that's always sort of good would be some sort of fishbone analysis, right? And maybe you've already, done some things like that, but, what are those causes that we could sort of act on? It sounds like then sort of going into the improve phase, you've said, okay, we need a system to sort of better measure and analyze this stuff. So that's your main improvement, if you will. And then maybe there's some sort of cultural things I heard where, people are maybe not recording things the way they should, or they don't have the discipline to enter the information in on a timely basis, and maybe some sort of visual management or human-based system to make sure that it happens. So then you'd have sort of the technical piece and the human piece, in there. So I don't know. I just, want to sort of jump in there and sort of model, because I guess you guys are all doing all the right stuff. It's a matter of putting it in that DMAIC framework so that it becomes this black belt story, if you will, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
No, I feel like the other project kind of fits lean, the story of lean to make, because there's actually, defined measurement, and it's change over time, and it kind of fits lean better in that one.
Okay. So with your mortality thing, so is there anything we can sort of help you with, or challenges you face at this time? We kind of walked you all the way through the improved stuff. Are those things that you would do or can do?
Well, the project was kind of like 2 phases of one, setting up a process and a system that's more automatic to measure mortality, the common fallouts that would cause us to have kind of false positive, higher mortality rates. And so the first phase was kind of setting up that process. And then now that the process is being set by collecting the data, having a software program built, having people review the data. And then the next phase is, okay, we're having a group of physicians meet to say, here's what we've been able to accomplish by setting up the program. Now, what do we want to focus on for improvements?
Okay.
So I guess a lot of it was setting up the program to actually measure what the true problems are, to analyze it, and then to present it to the committee to focus on the improvement areas.
But I would also, this is a mini project.
Yeah.
I'll go ahead and take credit for setting up the measurement system. I think a lot of times what we find when we're analyzing the problem is we don't have good data. So one of the first improvements is put something in place to get good data.
That's what we did.
Yeah, exactly. So I think you're on the right path. And then are you going to be able to sort of finish things up by the time frame? Waiting for physicians doesn't seem like a good bet, right?
Yeah, we're going to have the very first dashboard out of the program November, and we are going to be presenting it to the physicians and meeting in November. Right. So it'll be on the tight side.
Yeah.
To getting.
Yeah. So I was just trying to think, is there some way we could sort of wrap this up and put a bow on it?
Yeah.
Without waiting for the physicians. And so what Well, what we're looking for is some sort of, change that you've done to the way you're doing business. And I know you've implemented now this automated online collection system.
Yeah.
My suspicion is you've done some other things to sort of change the behavior or whatnot. Take credit for that change, and then jump over to the control. How are you gonna make sure that your measurement system, continues to take data the way it is? Do you have, maintenance agreements or software, whatever's, to do? And then on the people side, are you going to install standard work for the people as far as implementing their entry of the information into the system, so that supports that? I think that would be sort of the way I would go to, and that would put a bow on it. And the fact that you have to do this other stuff with the physicians to actually use it would be a separate project or a different approach, right?
I agree with you. I think that all the elements are there, just putting it in the right DMAIC slots and taking credit for all of it too.
Yeah. Okay.
Because exactly, like the standard operating procedure on how to review the charts, that was done.
Yeah.
So a lot of, and then for the measure, I did a data collection plan.
Yeah.
And that was very helpful. It was like a spreadsheet of why we were collecting it, what we were going to collect, what was the numerator, what was the denominator, and the data collection plan.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
that was one of the tools too.
Yeah, and by the way too, so we're asking for like 2 tools in each one of those phases of the DMAIC process. You can throw in a third or something you're particularly proud of, or you can't let go of. I know Laura and I have done a lot of grading on these sort of things, and there is a place that says to sort of get to the top level for score on a particular tool set or area, has the student put in extra effort. So doing an extra tool or taking the extra step, we will give you credit for that, but we're also trying to emphasize get you done. This has been a long course, and we want to wrap this up and move you on to maybe some certification projects or whatever. Okay. So I am going to go back and kind of move things on here. Let's see. Share screen. Back to here. From current slide. Okay. So one thing, talking about doing certification projects, I wanted to sort of just introduce this to you. So for black belts, and I'm assuming, probably, most of you guys are going to try to go on for this. But for the black belt projects, what we do is it's not necessarily about just, knocking out a bunch of tools like we do in the mini projects. It's actually about moving through the phases of the DMAIC process, and we've broken that DMAIC process down into a bunch of questions that you need to answer. So, so you see here sort of a screenshot that I would see as the coach for your project, and you'll notice that they've got the define, measure. Shouldn't have clicked there. Measure, analyze, improve, control. And then there's these like toll gate questions that you've been sort of seeing in MoreSteam at the end of each one of these sections. And the idea on these is you would sort of present your answers to me to these questions with supporting tools or information. And then once you've finished all, say, like on define, all 5 of those questions, and we get a thumbs up on all 5 of those, then you'd be able to proceed onto the measure, same thing, then analyze, and then that's the way we would essentially move through, and I would sort of coach and mentor the project by looking over your shoulder on this, all right? I'm going to escape out of this, and I've got an instance of, so this is now the sort of the real thing on Traction. And I'm just going to go ahead and click on a few questions to show you how this breaks down. So So the question is, how is the team staffed for cross-functional representation? And so Marcel, who was our first green belt, out of Cal Poly, so he did a RACI matrix, and you can kind of see the image up here for that. But you're supposed to answer the question, right? How is it staffed? He provided an answer. We want to know what actions did he do to answer that question? Who did he talk to? What steps did he take? And then at the bottom, at the end here, it's what were the key lessons learned. So essentially, this would be the answer or the sort of the format for the answer for every one of the questions that we would sort of go through, right? And there's also some mechanisms where you would be able to sort of share files. So I could come over here. I'm going to click the manage. But these are all the different files that he sort of shared with me on this project to go all the way through. All right, and you can kind of see there's a lot more than 10 tools there that he's done. So let me go back to, let's just go this back button, I think. So, I go through, and so we got sort of all the different, questions here. So here's an example of his flow chart that he kind of did for his problem and the answer. So what we do with the once you start to go and you said, I want to do my black belt certification, you've got to do 2 projects, right? You've got to do a independent project and a mentored project. So what I've shown you with the traction is an example of what the mentored project looks like. So this is me, you and I going back and forth, me looking over your shoulder. We'll start an email chain. I think I was just looking at one of our second green belt, a student that completed his green belt project. We had 83 different emails back and forth that we sent each other to sort of answer questions and whatnot as far as getting them through this sort of thing. But independent project and a mentored project. I suggest you do the independent project first. So Cassie, for example, if you want to do that operating room turnaround time as your project, your independent project, you go ahead and do that. All you have to do is write it up in sort of a DMAIC format and tell me what you did for each one of those phases and sort of describe it. And I'm really not looking for maybe more than maybe 10 pages of figures and sort of discussion on what you did, and then that would be your independent project. Once that independent project is complete, then you would sign up for the certification class, right? And I think I forget, I'd have to sort of look at what the price is on the certification class. I want to say it's like $800, but I'm not sure. But once you'd sign up, then I'd log you into Traction, and we would do another project. And you'd have to do for each of those, before we would sort of get you going in the certification stuff, I'd like to see a draft project charter for your independent and for your proposed mentored project, just so that we don't, we've essentially, used that draft project charter as our contract for what it is you're going to do. Okay. Any questions for that? What that black belt certification process would look like, or?
So you said for the mentored project that we would have to register with MoreSteam to do it, since we use their software program to.
I actually no. So what MoreSteam does, the relationship I have with MoreSteam is they're mainly about selling the training, right? Certification, because it's such a one-on-one, labor-intensive sort of thing, they don't really want to do a lot of that. So what they've done is they've given Cal Poly an instance of this Traction. So essentially, anybody who's taken MoreSteam training, through Cal Poly, I can click on them and make them a traction project manager, right? So I can actually do that for any one of you guys, like at this point. But of course, I'm going to wait till I get the money, right? Before I go ahead and do that. But so we're totally at this point, other than using MoreSteam's traction, we're totally independent of them in the certification process. Okay.
But the certification, does it come from? Will it say it comes from Cal Poly or from MoreSteam? It'll
say it comes from Cal Poly, but the way the certification certificate is set up, it has really sort of three representative entities. There's Cal Poly, there's Central Coast Lean, and there's MoreSteam.
Oh, okay.
So all three of those guys, but really only I sign off as director of Central Coast Lean, and we get the dean of the College of Business to sign off for Cal Poly, and then your Cal Poly black belt certified is kind of what the end is. All right. Okay. And really we use the sort of the pretty much the same certification process that MoreSteam uses, but we use me as sort of the coach and the certifier as opposed to their folks. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let me go back to this. So I want to talk a little bit about you guys are getting ready. You're finish up this material. We got two things. We've got the practice exam, and then we've got the final exam. So the practice exam, it's actually a generic exam. We use the same practice exam for green belt and black belt. So the bad news for you guys is you're probably not going to see a lot of design for experiments questions. Or maybe that's a good thing for you guys, depending on how you sort of feel about design of experiments. But you're going to get the sort of generic DMAIC sort of questions. There's only 10 questions. It's 6 minutes per question. So you need to budget your time. If you're going to take this test, though, I would use it as a test simulation for your actual exam, right? Get all the screens, use the computer that you're going to use, all the reference materials, have that all sort of laid out so you give it a good test. The actual final exam is 5 hours and 120 questions, right? So although you're going to have like 6 minutes per question on the practice, in the final exam, you're only going to have like 2.5 minutes per question. So what I would target for is try to complete the practice test in 25 minutes, right? And if you don't complete it in 25 minutes, you might want to look at, how can you, access your resources faster or I don't know what you'd sort of want to do, or maybe go back and study a little bit more some of the things you were slow on so you can actually complete it in 2.5 minutes per question, okay? So Dominic, that's attack time for you right there. Okay, good deal. Yeah, and then there's some other information. The stuff I copied on this page, if you go to your MoreSteam page and you look down the bottom, you've got like Test Crucible, I think they call it. And you could actually click on your practice test. You'll be able to open up the instruction window without actually starting the test. You'll see these same sort of instructions there on the practice test and also on the final exam. And so these are the instructions for the practice test. We go to the next page. So here's the same sort of thing for the, for the final exam. Just so you guys know, so I've set up, complete the practice test by this time. What I'd like you to do is after you've done the practice test, we'll just say you guys can go ahead and take this final exam anytime. before Sunday, December 11th. So you actually have the capability right now to take this, after we close down tonight. My recommendation is don't do it, right? Because, you can't really go back. So once that clock starts ticking, it's that same sort of, nervous, I'm in the sort of the exam space kind of thing. So make sure you're ready before you start this thing. Any questions about how the practice exam, final exam work?
Just more of the actual field of testing is itself. Is it structured the same exact way as the MoreSteam quizzes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It'll feel like the quizzes. The thing that you'll notice will be different is that the questions are all randomized, right? So you'll get an improved question, then a measure question and things. So when you're doing the online quizzes, everything is, contained right within that subject area. So it tends to be maybe a little easier to find and hunt, and your memory is sort of in there. This, you got to remember all, all 5 Demotic phases, where the information's at, how to access it in order to answer the questions in a random fashion. Okay.
And then I'm not seeing it on here, but the quizzes are structured where you'd have a second opportunity to answer from the same. So you're shaking your head. So
No,
my question.
it was good during the quizzes.
Yeah.
You're a grown up now. Yeah. So you just get one shot at that. You can skip questions and go back, but the clock is always running, right? So, all right. Well, we'll sort of revisit this again next week. Just make sure, or in 2 weeks from now, when you guys are back, to make sure you guys are on track with that. This is just a breakdown. Go back and take a look at the syllabus. Remember, like, where your grades are, coming from for this. Because one of the things, to be able to be qualified for moving forward for certification, you need to get like an 80% or better, across the board on all elements of the course. So 80% or better on quizzes, 80% or better on your mini project, 80% or better on the final exam, right, to be considered for certification. You can finish this course with less, but you got to have at least a 70% to even say that you completed this course. So anyway, questions?
So I have a question on the MoreSteam quizzes.
Okay.
Is it 80% for every single little quiz we took, or is it 80% for
overall average?
Okay.
Right, yeah. So you can get some 70s and some 90s and still.
Yeah. Because I have like an 88% overall, but I think I have like a 75 here and there. And
what happened?
Wanted to get homework done.
Yeah, no, I understand. Okay.
No, I don't know. So that's why it's my question.
And really, just so you guys know, so with the exams, and I guess it could sort of work, and it also sort of works with the mini project. So you come up, say you get like a 78 on your mini project because you forgot to do one of the tools, or something happens. We do allow for a corrective action process on that, and say, okay, in order to get up, you have to fix this part. We'll give it back to you. You could fix it in order to get above the 80%, so you can proceed on to certification. We also have, on the final exam, if you do not get 80% or better on the final exam, we will allow you to take it one additional time after a 1 month cooling off period, right? So you can't take it, fail, and then take it again the next day. But a month later, we'll let you retake it in order to get above 80%. If you're still determined, because we love determination in Lean Six Sigma, and you're short on your score of 80%, I'll also allow you to do a corrective action. Say the section on gauge R&R, you didn't, you missed 3 out of 3 questions. Write me up a little sort of corrective action. Show me that you really understand gauge R&R, and we'll sort of get you back in the game. So there are some paths if things go wrong. but try not to take those paths, okay? All right, whoop. Just tips and tricks, just on that help button. Sometimes if you're going for speed on the exams, sometimes it's nice to be able to sort of go to this help button, type in a quick, I forget what an alias is, and just reading the definition of an alias, might be enough to help you answer a question, right? So rather than diving, deep into the middle of, the 36 hours of design of experiments looking for something, this is a real sort of quick way to get maybe, the information you need to, narrow down your selection on a multiple choice, okay? So that's a little tip there. All right, so the improve. So, the way I look at improve is really this sort of thing of trying to get, meaningful change. So when you come in and you start out in the Demotic process, define, you've got some sort of process that we're interested in, some problem, and that's the current state. And then, when you're in the improve phase, I'm looking for some significant, meaningful, they could be small, but it needs to be sort of a meaningful change that moves you from that current state closer to an improved future state. So we got the, sort of the Kaizen, Japanese symbols, virtuous change for the better. So I'm just saying, have you made some changes that improve things? When we look at it from a black belt level, meaningful change is going to be, there needs to be something significant there, right? For many projects, do some sort of little thing, would be fine. Almost anything will sort of work with that as long as it's some sort of change for the process. But for a black belt project, I would be looking for like a, 20% improvement in quality, or a, 50% reduction of work in process, or, operating room turnaround time, is now, 2 hours faster, so it needs to be something, significant that we can brag about. When people do Six Sigma, if you're in a Six Sigma organization, a lot of times their criteria would be monetized, as far as improvements go, right? And in order to get your black belt, you got to save the company $500,000, or, over the course of, a year, or, the life of that improvement or project or whatever. I'm not so much into the monetization, because I think a lot of bad things have been done by accountants, versus, the way we think about improvements and lean. So think about, certainly think about cost, but also think about, quality improvements, and certainly time improvements, significant time improvements would be where we'd want to wind up. Okay, I'm not going to, certainly there's a lot of things on this page. Any of these could be improvements. I think one of the things that's nice about the whole field of Lean and Six Sigma, there's a lot of different problems out there. There's also a lot of common problems, and there's also a lot of common solutions. So, if you have a problem, like, for example, I'll just sort of go to the lean operations require quick changes, right? So we know that, if the setup changeover stuff like you're doing, Cassie, we know that, single minute exchange of die is sort of a known solution or a known process for fixing those sort of things. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel. There's a lot of good things out there. I think, the difference between green belts and black belts, green belts are expected to know the tools and how to apply the tools. Certainly black belts are also supposed to know the tools and apply the tools, but black belts are supposed to be able to go where no one has gone before, right? So Dominic, talking about deep dives and analytical analysis into things, and coming up with new tools or ways or approaches that are going to be maybe unique for your business, or does an even better job than some of the standard tools of solving a problem, or is actually combinations of tools that are uniquely put together. Those are the kinds of things I feel like you need to do from a black belt standpoint. You guys are young black belts, but at some point in your black belt evolution, that's where you're going to be, and that's where you're going to go. All right. Okay. Beyond that, I think I had this sort of inside to sort of work a problem or something, but I'm going to say you guys did a nice job of sort of going through in pretty detail and depth on your mini projects, and we sort of talked about that. So I'm going to say we're good for this, unless there's something that you guys really want to see or had a problem with in the training. Is there anything that you didn't understand how line balancing worked, or you didn't understand something that was presented in the MoreSteam material? Okay. All right, I'm gonna assume we're good on that. And then last but not least in this section, I want to point out this design for Six Sigma. I think you could really sort of teach a whole course in this. So one of the things that we've looked through, and I think the stuff that the approach that we've taken and what we've looked at with the Demotic process is really good and effective on existing products and processes that already exist. So if I have the existing process, I can use the tools that we've learned in this course and stuff to fix it. However, there are situations where you're starting with a blank sheet of paper, right? We've never built this product before, or we don't have a process to really do this thing, and we've got to design it from scratch. Well, that's where design for Six Sigma comes into play. And we actually use a different sort of approach. So define, measure, analyze, design, and then verify might be the steps that we sort of take in this process. There's some really good design for Six Sigma, or design for manufacturability, or design for X, design for whatever you want. We need to design for fast changeover in operating rooms. We need to design for, sterile work environments, design for whatever. There's some good sort of principles here. They're probably heavily manufacturing focused. But, I'd sort of think about that and sort of think about, what the equivalents are, in maybe the healthcare field, Cassie, if you sort of need to go there. That's another thing where I think black belts are supposed to excel is, the basic principles. You ought to be able to take this stuff into any field, right? Take it into government, take it into healthcare, take it into manufacturing, and apply it there. There's also some good research on design for manufacturability. But I just want to make, MoreSteam hits it pretty quick, but this could be one of your things, if you make it that way. Cassie, you got a question?
So I was reading about this, this MoreSteam, and so I was kind of feeling like the define, concept, design, optimize, and verify was almost like it fits better for my mortality, because it was like, we defined what the problem was, we have a concept, and we designed a methodology to optimize what we're trying to figure out. So when I was reading this, I was like, well, that fits better.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, I would be perfectly happy to take a mini project that was, designed for Six Sigma, and you use the define, measure, analyze, design, verify. If you want to use that, just give me 2 tools in each one of those areas.
Okay, because we're verifying the reviews, we're verifying the software, we've designed it, we designed the program.
Yeah.
So when I was reading this, I was like, that really fits what the first project.
Yeah, we might have been trying to shoehorn that a little bit into that.
Yes.
FMA process.
It feels like it fits better into this.
Yeah, no, yeah, go ahead and go for that. I generally try to steer people away from doing a design for Six Sigma as sort of their first mini project sort of experience. Because like I said, the bulk of what MoreSteam presides and presents is more geared for that existing process problem. But certainly this is valid, and if you're
so if I did 2 tools for both and it was really good and sound, then you would accept that. Okay,
Yeah.
good. I think that will be much better. Thank you.
Okay, sure, no problem there. Okay, well, I think that's all I've got for tonight. Anything else that you guys want to talk about, or questions, or?
I do have a question.
Okay, well then go ahead and ask.
Go back to the overall grading and scoring, and I don't know if it's just me.
Yeah.
I don't have a clear sense of, and I don't know if my just Fullerton page is not updating, but I don't have a clear sense of like where I'm at in regards to these things, or tracking to these percentages and grading.
Right.
For like the in-process stuff. I missed a couple. I confessed to Laura, and
Yeah. Well, let's go kind of run through this sort of real quick. And Laura, you can sort of jump in and sort of help me out because you do a lot of the automatic grading kind of stuff on here. So this 20% of grade, the MoreSteam quizzes.
Yeah.
We don't transfer that stuff to the Fullerton site till the very end.
Okay. Yeah.
So you need to go to MoreSteam to see that. And as long as you're getting 80% on what MoreSteam says, you're good on that, right? So I'm going to skip the 10% participation. So 5% of the grade, that's going to be the practice test, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the mini project, that 40% of your grade hasn't been graded yet, right? So you're not seeing that. And then the final exam. Where's the final exam? Oh yeah, and then the final, so the mini project, 25% of your grade, and then the final exam, 40%. So you haven't sort of seen either of those. When those are, so when we grade your mini project and you do the final exam, it'll just sort of pop up on MoreSteam, and you'll have visibility on that. This 10% of the grade, so we haven't really been tracking, attendance, per se.
Yeah.
I would say that, you guys are good on those. So, I would expect, to get, that full sort of 10% for you guys. Is that, and Laura, correct me on that. So back in the beginning when we used this a little more intensively with the Greenbelt folks, but we had all those movie quizzes.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask.
And all those sort of things. So Laura, are we not sort of up to date as far as grading all those things go on the Fullerton site?
I thought we were up to date on the quizzes, like everything we did with the Greenbelt, unless I must have missed something. Is there...
Because we gave all those guys an actual Cal Poly grade for their stuff. So
right. Dominic, what are you looking at that's missing right now? Is it just the...
Yeah, the movie and interview.
Okay.
The celebrity quizzes, right?
Celebrity quizzes and the movie quizzes.
Well, we'll go ahead and check and make sure that all that's up to date.
Yeah, I'll double check that.
But I'm thinking you guys, as long as you're, reasonable participation on those things.
Because that falls in here in this 10%, right? That's
right.
That's the question concern that I have. I missed a MoreSteam date. As I said, shame on me. So I'll take my hit there.
Yeah. No, there's a lot of stuff, and really, that participation piece, that 10% grade. We put a lot of stuff in there, but it's all just to kind of keep the action going.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the big payoffs are on the mini project and then on the final exam.
Got it.
Okay. All right. Any other questions or concerns? Okay, well, I really enjoyed tonight. I'm talking in detail about some of these projects and things. So sometimes I get into my big class sort of lecture mode, and I got to remember to slow down and just sort of talk to you guys some stuff because I'm learning some things as we go here too. So
Yeah.
I appreciate that. All right. Okay, so we'll see you guys in 2 weeks. Sooner if you need to talk.
Thank you, Eric.
Okay, take care.
Bye.
Bye.